Hi everyone, it's Miss Teresa and Nola again, and we're here to talk about week 2. I first want to say thank you for all of your discussion posts for week 1, and we're off to a very good start. Nola and I intentionally kind of held back the first week a little bit, but we're going to jump in there and start responding to some things, but we expect you to keep responding. We're always going to give you some time first to do your post and reply to each other, so please be sure to keep up with those. We have a couple of things to talk to you about. One is your first paper is due Sunday night, and Nola's going to tell you what it's going to be about. You can go ahead and tell them about that, please.
Okay. Hey, everybody. It was awesome going in through and reading your post. It was really incredible getting to know everyone just by seeing who you were and what kind of things you have going on in your own personal lives. So that was just fantastic. And okay, so your first paper, and I know for me as a college student, a paper has always given me a little bit of anxiety, but I do want to just kind of set the tone for just relax a little bit on this, because you've already done the research, you've done that ACEs pretest. And so that's the research you had to do to write this paper, and it's basically a reflection paper based off of that. So there's 5 categories that you're going to want to examine in this. And the first is your strengths and weaknesses. So what were your strengths? What were your weaknesses in general with the ACEs? The second thing is perception versus ACEs. What was your idea of what you thought you were going to be really good in, like maybe connecting with others or time management? And then what did the ACEs say? And
it's okay, guys, if those are different. Please don't think that ACEs puts you in a box. I think I had one area that I got green on, and that was connecting with others, and everything else was red and yellow.
I was the same way.
So we don't necessarily score really high on that. It's not a box that says you're not capable of being successful as a college student. It's a way to assess kind of what are your current, the way you're answering questions and the way your current life is. How are you likely to be in these particular areas, and what are some strategies we can do to improve that?
And it is a lot of mood based. So if you're having a little bit of an off day, your score may be different than it would be if you were just having a day where you were just going all 9 cylinders. So anyway, the third part is how might your strengths and weaknesses affect college? So that's going to be slightly a more examination. You kind of did this in your post this week, but it's going to be a little different because you're actually going to be using what you learned in the ACEs about that. So the fourth one is what strengths are most important for students. So this is the fun part, because you really get to actually take a look at only your strengths and apply those for you in general, and how they're going to help you be successful. And lastly, what are your biggest concerns? And like I say, you did this in your discussion this week, so it will be, like I say, partly a little different due to the ACEs. And I'll go ahead and say my concerns. I scored really poorly in time management when I took this, and that's partially because I have a child, and so all of you pretty much, I think most of you have children, so I think we can all relate that when you have children and other people to take care of, it does make it a little different managing your time. Another barrier that I had when I started school was my visual impairment. It's still there. I still am visually impaired. If you couldn't see how closely I was having to read this paper, my nose was literally touching it. So I had to figure out how I was going to get my textbooks, because I can't sit there and read a print book. I have to get them in audio, and how I was going to get to school. And those were things that I had to figure out how I was going to overcome them so that I could be just as successful as someone who could have all of those things.
And Nola's done an outstanding job. She doesn't brag often, but she's done an incredible amount of activities on campus, and she's a leader in many organizations. She's doing the peer mentorship. She was in the Miss LSUA pageant. She's just amazing. She's done some incredible things. So the inspiration that Nola gives me is that regardless of what your barriers are, there are ways you can find ways to be successful and to do the things that you need to do. So,
okay, and so the next thing we're going to tell you guys about, and I know this may make you feel a little rushed, because I know we're throwing kind of a little bit out to you this week, is your service learning project. And we're telling you guys about this earlier on than we probably would have, because the on-campus group of the LSU 801, there's, I want to say, 16 sections of it altogether. And they are doing theirs on
November 19th. That morning, they'll be at the food bank, and I'll be sending you information. And we're saying this now because if you'd like to do it with the big group and you are close to Alexandria and that time works for you, you are more than welcome to come in, and that will count. Your reflection paper on your service project is not due until week 7. But if you want to go ahead and knock this out and get it out of the way, you can do that. I want to just share with you, I'm going to show you some of the things that the online group did last time. So one of the ladies lived in the part down near Denham Springs where they had so much devastation from flooding, and she worked in her church's shelter. It's kind of like a store, but they're providing all sorts of needed materials for victims of the flooding down in South Louisiana where she was. One went to the library and did a volunteer project at a library support group in her neighborhood. One, I know these pictures are getting a little small, one went to the Humane Society and worked there with her daughter, her teenage daughter, which is one of her daughter's passions. One went to Habitat for Humanity and worked in the reuse store. And another one just moved to a new community and didn't know anyone and didn't have a lot of information about what was available. So she just picked up trash on the side of the highway near her home. The goal is more for you to connect, but what I'm showing you is there's all sorts of ways to do this. And this was the reason we sent you the t-shirt. And so we'd like for you to wear the t-shirt with whatever project you do. You can make that whatever it is that you want. And like I said, if you want to do the food bank, Nola and I actually did the food bank last time as well. If you want to do the food bank, November 19th is when all the on-classes campus sections are going to do it. And you're welcome to come in, or you can choose a project of your own. There will be more information about that up next week.
Yes, and the only thing you'll have to do is write the paper and make sure when you do that service learning project, take a picture. But yes, there will be much more about that later on in the class.
So just a couple of quick other notes. Some of the things you've expressed in your concerns and your barriers to graduation are very consistent with what we see in all new students, new college students. You're right on track. Much of this class is going to address many of the things that you mentioned. We have a unit on time management. We have a unit on note taking that actually will have you practice some different strategies and show you some different strategies. We have some specific sections on reading and understanding college textbooks. It's different than reading a novel. It's not just sitting down and reading from page 1 to page 50 and then expecting to know all the stuff in it. So we're going to cover a lot of that material. In the meantime, just stay on track with your to-do list. And if you have any questions at all, please post either in the Mud Pit forum at the top of the class, or send me an email, or send Nola an email. We are both listed in the quick mail section of Moodle that's on your left-hand side, and you can email anybody in the class through that system. And let me know if you have any questions, and I'm glad you all are here. So I hope you have a great week. I'm going to try to have everything up by Friday each week for the next week. I was late this week doing it. So have a great week, and let us know if you have any problems.
Bye.
Bye.